Hey Beacon, welcome home to your Bounce Back Blueprint Community podcast, where you are challenged to be, do, and have God's best as you thrive on your journey from setback to success. I'm your Bounce Back guide, Tiffany Huff Struthers, and I'll be guiding you on the journey by sharing tips, tools, and the tea on how I was able to bounce back from escaping death, healing from heartbreak, and finding hope in homelessness. And then I wrote an award-winning book all about it. And shout out to God, ever since I was courageous enough to share my story, my life and the lives of women around the world have been forever changed. And as a member of the Bounce Back Blueprint community, I'm called to teach you to do the same. So grab your journal and let's build this blueprint. Hey Beacon, before we start building the blueprint this week, I wanted to take a moment or two to check in with you. I know that for some of us, 2020 knocked us down so hard we don't know how or where to even begin as we try and get back up. And I want you to know that you don't have to grow through it alone. Trust me, I have seen the lowest of the low. Bankruptcy, homelessness, domestic violence, you name it. And you know what? By the grace of God, I got back up and I came back better than ever. And I want to support you in doing the same. So if you are in need of some support to build your bounce back blueprint and really get things done in 2021 so that you can be, do, and have all that God has called you to, schedule your session and let's get to the breakthrough. You can grab the link in the show notes or go to bit.ly/your bounce back guide. Now, let's get into this week's episode as we continue our series, The Lies We Tell Ourselves. The next installment in our series, The Lies We Tell Ourselves. You are really going to enjoy today's guest. She is a powerhouse. Her name is Stephanie Cooper, and we are busting through the lie that I can't do it because she's doing it. So before Stephanie and I help you build the blueprint this week, let me tell you a bit about the powerhouse that is going to bless you today. Stephanie Cooper is a published author, podcast host of Broken into Beautiful. She's a teen mentor and a coach. She is very passionate about helping women become the best version of themselves through healing and changing their mindset to manifest the life they want. And Stephanie and I met over on Clubhouse in the Black Girls Do Club. She's a moderator over there, and she is phenomenal at community building and supporting and encouraging and challenging women. So, without further ado, I want to say thank you so much, Stephanie, for being here and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. That was an awesome introduction. More than I'm like, hey,
Yes, yes. Well, let's
thanks
get
for
beyond
having me.
my introduction. Please tell the audience who you are beyond the bio.
Oh man, beyond the bio, I am a kind of a nerd. So I have a degree in science. I love science. I'm a comic girl, Marvel, DC, Star Trek, all that. I love it all. That's when I'm binge watching on the weekends, Netflix and CBS and everything. That's what I'm watching, some kind of sci-fi thing, because that's my thing. um yeah, let's see. I have two dogs. I have a Yorkie and a new puppy. Her name is Chloe. She's a pit bull. Sweetest
Oh,
little thing. She's very sweet. Um, and that's it. No, not married, no children. Just
so
me and
a
the
comic girl.
Yes, I
Okay.
love it. Let me tell you, when I used to live in New Orleans, we I was a part of this group called Geek Girl Squad. And so we would do brunches or just meet up. So let's say like the new Wonder Woman movie was coming out pre-COVID, we would get together, make costumes and all kinds of stuff and get dressed, have brunch and get dressed up in Wonder Woman and any other kind of superhero outfits and go to the movies and brunch in those
Oh, I love
outfits.
that. That sounds like a really good time. And I'm sure it's always a good conversation starter. Like, what are y'all doing? Where are y'all from? Where are y'all going? Right? People always
Mhm.
ask stuff like that. That's cool. I like it. I don't know that
Yes.
I am acquainted with anybody who majored in science. So what did you think you wanted to be when you grew up?
So I wanted to be just like most little girls, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a pediatrician. So I actually went into the military before I went to college. And when I went into the military, I became a chemist in the military. And so
Wow.
after I got out of the military, I went straight to college and got a degree in biology and chemistry. And just I've been working in different, I didn't go to medical school. I was too afraid to take the MCAT. That's a whole nother conversation. Um, but I did stick to the public health and healthcare field. And so I've been working in laboratories doing toxicology and pharmacology and different types of science things. I've had science programs. Been a director of a science camp for kids. I love science. You'll catch,
So
I don't have children, and you'll catch me at home making slime.
I love it. I love it. I think it's a great interest to have, and I think that it's a dynamic field to be in. It was just never my thing. I can remember in high school doing the chemistry experiments over and over again, my friend and I, and we were in the quote unquote gifted classes, but we just weren't into science. So there's
I
that. But I'm
love it.
curious, with all that said, how you segued into the lane that you are in now with Broken into Beautiful. So maybe you could share a little bit with us about your transition and your Broken into Beautiful story.
Well, I mean, with my love of science, I've always also had a love and a passion for children and women. It's just like you can't choose. For me, it's like Lay's potato chips. You can't choose just one. I like both sides of the world. And so, um, while I worked in science, I still did childcare. I had my own little childcare business on the side, making some nice little money. Um, just doing childcare and babysitting and tutoring and things like that. And then I became a mentor for teen girls, pregnant teen moms. And that's like a forgotten demographic that people don't really talk about much, but it's so many of them out there, and they really touched my heart. So I started mentoring them about 4 or 5 years ago. And Broken into Beautiful, um, I got that title some years ago, and I thought it would be a book because I've already wrote a book, a 30-day devotional for women. It's called Talitha Koem, Little Girl I Say to You Get Up. I call it my 30-day motivational devotional, kind of get you together and get you straight so you can get up and go do what you're supposed to do. And so Broken into Beautiful was given to me. And so I thought it would be another book title, just didn't know how, when, where, what, whatever. And what happened was in 2018, I got divorced. And along with that divorce came a whole bunch of other stuff like job loss, like con- consecutive job loss. Like I lost like 3 or 4 jobs right behind each other. And so it was a journey of me um, coming out of my marriage, being embarrassed and ashamed because it didn't even last 2 years. It was like a month shy of 2 years, and I got a divorce. And so I relocated back to Atlanta, and I kind of became this hermit crab and sat in my shell and in my house and just kind of, a lot of people didn't even know I had moved back because I was so embarrassed and ashamed of how my life was going because I've always been doing good. And so I wasn't doing good, and I just I didn't want people to see that. And so I just hid. And all through that process, a lot of things happen, like just me being stressed and going through anxiety and depression because of everything that was going on with me. There was one point where I even considered suicide. Um, and I just, it was a hard time for me, like for 2 years, almost up to 2020, from 2018 to 2020. It was a hard journey for me. And I listened to Jessica Hurley. She has a podcast called The Stranded Phase. And so I listened to her regularly. And one day on Instagram, she put a post up asking, "Do you have a story to tell? I'd love to help you start a podcast or have you on my podcast." So, not really thinking of it, I just responded to in her comments, was like, "Ooh, I've always thought of doing a podcast, but I just didn't know. I, I don't even know where to begin. And you know how sometimes you just respond to stuff and you don't expect people because they're much bigger and you don't expect them to respond. She responded. And so she
Wow.
responded and we connected. We talked on the phone and she pretty much got me into starting a podcast. She was like, "You have a voice, you have a story, and there's so many women out there that need to hear your story, that relate to your story, and they need to know that they aren't alone." And so I was like, "Okay, well, just let me think about it." Um, because it was going to be an investment, and at the time, of course, going through from job loss and little jobs, part-time jobs, I'm like, how am I going to make this work? I'm always investing in other people and their companies, but I don't really invest in myself. And so I decided to take the risk and invest in myself. And so I called Jessica back and said, I'm going to do it. And as we were talking about titles and things like that, my profile's name was already broken into beautiful because I didn't know what to do with the title. I just had it. So my profile's name on IG was already broken into beautiful. And when I told her about that, she was like, "That's it. That's the title of your podcast, Broken into Beautiful." And I was
That's
like,
such a beautiful journey. Of
yeah.
course, when you were going through it, growing through it, I'm sure it wasn't as beautiful. But for that title to come full circle, it was almost like God gave you foresight about what was to come. And of course, being the humans that we are and focused where we want to focus, I
Hmm.
can totally see myself also thinking, I was like, yep, that's going to be the book. Not knowing that he has something completely different in store.
Yes, absolutely.
Is so amazing. And I love the title myself, so I can see why Jessica suggest or, affirmed, I should say, that that was the title and that, God had given to you a little earlier than you knew what it would be used for.
Hmm.
I just love how eloquently you are able to share your story and the work that you're doing. And I want to be clear for the listeners because of the lie that we're busting through today about how we so often get caught up in, I can't do it because she's doing it or someone else already did it. Our work is very closely aligned because we do a lot of the same things, right? We both have podcasts, we both are sharing our own stories of overcoming and turning them around and using them for beauty and to help and impact others. We have both written devotionals. We both are coaching, right? And at even with all of that, we are here working together, collaborating to make an impact and bust down this lie. And so I want you to speak to, what do you think about or what do you think is at the root of this lie when people think that it's a competition or that we can't collaborate or even I just can't do it because Stephanie's already doing it. What do you
um
think is at the root of that?
That's a mindset that I think started way before us, where um maybe back in times of like way back to slavery, maybe even, where people they already had this and there was nobody else to do it. And usually people will work hard and get themselves up to a certain point, but they don't pull anybody else up with them and they don't help anybody else because of it's like uh uh I want to say like obesity, but it's the wealth of obesity. Like you're obese in wealth and you don't want to share it. You don't want to help anybody get to where you are. I guess because of fear they may be better or something. I have no idea
I
what that's
agree.
about.
I definitely think that it's a lack mindset, right? Partially, I think that any lie that you allow to consume you and stop you is at the root of it, there's a lack mindset. And I also think that is some fear and insecurity,
Mm.
but it's really even deeper than that. It's about your own authenticity. If you're not really aware of who you are and able to be authentic, then you're constantly going to be looking around to see what other people are doing or telling yourself that someone else is doing it better.
Yeah. And we have to change that to more of a community mindset, meaning
Yes.
we're not just doing this for us. Yes, we are going to benefit from it, but we also need to help bring along the others, our community, where we came from, or other women that want to do the same thing, but they just don't know how. And you're more successful when you bring other people with you. And one of the things, I actually interviewed Jessica on my podcast, and before I in the introduction, I kept telling people, all right, y'all go check out her podcast, and she was like, you are where you belong, because most people would be afraid to tell someone else to go check out somebody else's podcast while they're listening to yours. And I'm just like, I don't see the need for competition. I like to say there's always room at the healing table. That means when you heal, you have a seat, and then there's still an empty seat next to you. So you need to bring somebody else. Heal people, heal people. And so there
Mm-hmm.
is always room at the healing table for us. It's never at full capacity. And so you can always bring people on board. And there's like, we just got to get over the whole competing thing and collaborate. Like, imagine what it would be like to see a whole bunch of women collaborating with each other, even if they have the same type of business, because somebody has something that relates to somebody else. So even though you and I are doing the same things, our audiences are probably different. Well, now our audiences are going to be combined, because the people
Yes.
that listen to me are now going to listen to you. The people that listen to you are now going to listen to me. But that's only because we collaborated. But
Yes.
even though we were doing the same thing, we have different audiences.
That's
So
right.
we're
And there are
reaching
some
different
people who are going
people.
to be who are going to connect to you more. There are some people who are going to connect to me more. But I
Mm-hmm.
think even more importantly is the truth that I cannot help everybody who needs help.
Yep.
So there are some people out there that need Stephanie, and Stephanie can't help everybody that needs help. So it makes more sense for us to work together to maximize our impact than to be competing or even shrinking ourselves down because we know that the other is there.
Yep. And that's exactly why my podcast is the way it is. Although it's Stephanie Cooper's podcast, I like to say this is our podcast, because I bring other women on because not everybody is going to relate to my story. And
Right.
so to reach more women, I bring on other women that have other stories. And even if their story is similar to mine, they still reach out to one or two or 1,000 people that I didn't reach out to.
That's right. And I think that we also need to recognize how powerful it is to have more than one perspective, right? Even if we did have very, very, very similar stories, being able to hear your experience and being able to hear my experience is going to have greater impacts. People are going to have different perspectives. They have more solutions to consider, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's more than one way to skin a cat. Isn't that what they say?
Yep.
And you're right. I love that you bring other women onto your podcast and that you allow them the space to share. It's I am a firm believer that sharing our stories are transformational and change the world. I mean, the Bible is full of stories and it's been a best-selling book for thousands of years. So it's a complete testament to the truth that your story has so much power and lasts for generations and generations. And one of the things that you say on your podcast that I really love, I wanted to make sure that I shared this with the audience for those who aren't familiar and haven't listened. You say, let's get real and let's go heal. And so I'm curious, with that in mind, what would be your approach to being able to support one of your clients that you're working with, or a potential client who comes to you and says, I want to do this thing. I know it's what I'm called to do, but there's so many other people doing it. There's so many other women doing it. I don't want so and so to think I stole her idea.
Well, that's what the whole let's get real about it is. Like, okay, let's get real. Yeah, there are so many other women out there doing the same thing, but you are going to do it different. And on top of that, why not reach out to that woman that has the same thing to see maybe she might want to collaborate with you. Maybe she may want to help you. And then instead of just thinking that it's going to be a whole competition thing. You never know. And she may say no. Okay. But you are not going to know until you reach out or until you just go about it. But you cannot sit on your voice and what you know and your experience because you're afraid that other people will think that you stole from them, or that they are or that there are already people out there saying the same thing. Because a lot of times we do say stuff that other people say. They're called quotes.
That's
And
right.
so, just give people their credit when you say something that somebody else says. Don't take it for yours. Um, but you can't be afraid to do something just because somebody else has did it. And I experienced that because with my book, at first that's the mindset I had. Like, what am I gonna say different than anybody else has already said? I read so many women's devotionals and stories. I'm just like, what am I gonna do or say different? But I had to get out of that mindset and still write it because somebody is going to relate. Somebody is going to, this is going to break through to somebody. But if you don't do it, then you're missing your calling. And that breakthrough that one person needed from you, but you were too afraid to do it, you just missed out on them.
Yes, yes, I agree. And that is so powerful. What we cannot allow to happen is that we allow our fears and our challenges to become burdens not only on our blessings, but they become burdens on the blessings that of the people we are called to serve and we are called to support, right? So we have to be able to move past this lie that only one person can do something and do it well. And I want everybody who's listening to know that there is so much power in partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And it is important that you do your due diligence, right? Everybody isn't necessarily going to make the best partner, but that still does not mean that you have to be competing with her. You two are
Right.
doing the same things. You are maybe parallel or in the same area of expertise, but I'm a firm believer that Stephanie and I both could follow the same recipe, but we both have a secret sauce. And that is what's
Yeah.
going to make the difference. Burger King and McDonald's both sell hamburgers. Some people prefer it char grilled, some people like it however my McDonald's makes it, right? And you can ride down the street and McDonald's and Wendy's and Burger King will all be on the same block and they all have customers, but they all selling burgers and fries.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There was one of them first. That didn't stop any of the other ones
Right.
from building, and they are what all billion-dollar companies.
Right. And then it didn't stop TGI Fridays from selling a burger, or
Right.
anywhere else that sells burgers. It didn't stop them just because somebody else saw it. There's like a million restaurants out there that already sells a burger because somebody is always going to prefer theirs over the other.
Yes, that's right. I want you to share a little bit about how um, you bring this idea of collaboration over competition into action in your life and business. Now, I already shared that we met in Black Girls Do, which is all about collaboration. But what other ways are you working to, elevate the message of collaboration over competition in your business, in your personal life?
Well, like I said, when I have a podcast episode and I have a guest, I always have my guests tell people where they can be found because I don't want this to seem like it's just my show and you're not important. No, your voice is also important. And I feel like I have this vision in my head where when people stand next to each other, or women stand next to each other and they link up, how powerful that is versus just one woman standing by herself that somebody could just blow right through. You can't blow through linked up women
Mm-hmm.
because it's too
That's
strong.
right.
They're too connected. And so connection is a big thing for me. And I'm always connecting, especially if I want to learn. Like even with being recently with Black Girls Do, just connecting with these women and making bonds with them, and the blessings that are coming out of that, it would not have happened if we just sat selfishly thinking that we can't collaborate with others. But I am always pushing go check this person out, go do this, go get this book, go, because it's not just about me. I got where I am from some of these people. These same
That's
people that I'm
right.
telling you to go check out, they helped me get where I am. And I'm just going to continue to push because the competition thing is overrated and it needs to die.
And you know what? You're right, it does need to die. And you know why? It's because collaboration and community gives so much life.
It's
You know,
stronger.
sometimes we put ourselves in these boxes and we end up in isolation because we feel like people don't understand. Back to that lack mindset, right? We think someone might steal our idea. But when you are bold and courageous enough to step out and approach someone else and say, "Hey, Stephanie, let's chat." I did not know Stephanie from a can of paint, but we connected in that clubhouse room and I hopped right in her DM and said, "We need to talk. We have some similarities and I know that we can bless somebody by doing that." And now from this, Stephanie and I will have a connection. Who knows? Stephanie might be the prayer partner I've been praying for. You know, you never know what will happen from you taking one step. And really, to bust down this lie, all it takes is one interaction.
That's it.
All it takes is you doing the next best thing that you know to do. What would you say, Stephanie, was one of the scariest experiences for you to reach out to somebody?
Of course, nobody likes rejection.
Right.
um, but I don't think I have a specific experience where I was just like out of body scared. I used to be always nervous about contacting someone, but now I'm not. It's like nothing. What are you going to do? The worst you can do is say no. And if you say no, okay, I'm just going to move on.
This
But
is
I
true.
won't know unless I ask or if I check, we got to stop moving in fear.
That's right. You definitely gotta stop moving in. Well, I think that you need to move in fear and not let fear direct your moves,
Mhm.
right? Because when you're afraid, you still have to do it. I don't know that I was necessarily afraid, but when I first started doing voice recordings in people's DMs, I was just like, this is different, you know? And in the DM, like if you mess up, you can't delete it. Like you can't start again. It sends. Like there's nothing you can do. They got it. Right. So it actually is a confidence booster. But even in the few instances where I have had some bloopers and what I was trying to say and had to re-record, the person came back and was very open and welcoming and even thanked me for being willing to reach out and
Yeah.
consider, you know, them for whatever it is that I was saying to them. So I want to just encourage the women who are listening to know that you have to take the first step. You
Hmm.
know, you have to be willing to call out and confront what you need to conquer, and that starts with really, like Stephanie says, getting real so that you can heal. What's the real reason that you aren't taking action with the thing or doing what God has told you you need to do?
Right. Got to get to the
And
root of it.
that's right. You got to get to the root of it and know that there is someone you likely can connect with who can support you in working through getting to the root of that. Would you agree, Stephanie?
Absolutely. Don't be afraid. Let me tell you, yesterday I was in somebody's DM asking them about a program, and I meant to say hi. Um, I'm interested in your program. I said, "Ho, I'm interested in your program," and and that was typing. I should have did a voice recording, but it said "ho." I was like, so I sent a message immediately. I said, "OMG, I meant hi, not ho," and she was very understanding because she was like, "I've done it before too." So it happens and it makes you laugh, makes them laugh, and then you move on.
Yeah, it actually might help you to just get the fear out if you have a little slip up because it's something the both of you can meet in the middle and laugh about.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the
Yep.
collaboration isn't necessarily what they're looking for at the time, people are generally happy to connect and meet someone new.
Mm-hmm. The times have changed. I think gone are the days where people don't want to collaborate, don't want to connect, especially women. Um, Now it's like women are realizing the strength in being together and collaborating. And so, more than likely, if you reach out to a person and say you want to collaborate with them, of course, they're going to ask, what the deal is, your question, your background to figure out if you're a good fit, which they should, and you should too.
Right.
But they're more willing, women are more willing to collaborate now. It's just a
Yeah, and I
change in the atmosphere.
it's a change in the atmosphere, and I think also the state of the world right now. People are struggling in isolation. Nobody
Yeah.
really wants to be alone. So there are some people who are waiting for you to hop in their DMs or waiting for
Mm-hmm.
you to send them the email or call them or whatever way you can connect with them. Even if it's someone local in your community, they may be waiting you for you to knock on the door in your mask, of course, but say, "Hey,
Yeah.
let's talk," or "What are you doing on Friday night? Do you want to fill in the blank?" People are waiting for exactly what you need, which is on the other side of your fear and that lie.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I'm just grateful to be able to have Stephanie here to have this conversation. I'm curious, Stephanie, is there anything that you've read or anybody that you follow beyond Jessica who has really been impactful for you as it relates to building up the confidence or the know-how to be able to initiate those collaborations or, just new
Yes.
relationships?
Um, it's funny because the title of the book is called "What a Time to Be Alone." I'm trying to pull it up so I can try to pronounce her name.
What a time
Um,
to be alone.
mm-hmm. Uh-oh. Let's see. Um, Chidera Ugari. I don't know if I said that right, but it's
Okay.
Chidera. And her last name is Eggerue. And this book is kind of like a guide to helping you realize that you are enough, and um even in your loneliness, try to enjoy who you are, become your own friend, then you won't be so lonely. um
And
and it
then you'll
just
also
gives,
have the confidence
yeah, because you're not
to
afraid
be
to be
somebody
alone.
else's friend.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And man, I'm always doing devotionals and audiobooks, and like that's just me. I love audiobooks. So anytime I go through and see something that pops out to me, I'm like, ooh, I want to listen to this. And so like there's so many different audiobooks that I've listened to. Let me see if I can pull up my library.
There's one
Um
I will share that I recommend to everybody, regardless of where you are on your journey, and it's called The Dream Giver. It's by Bruce
mm,
Wilkinson. And the book it's a short book. It starts out with a fable in the beginning, and then at the end, it goes through and basically he gives some some context for the fable, some questions for you to consider, and it's ultimately about how we go on this journey when we recognize we're called to something higher or to do something different, and the journey that we go on to get there. And he uses metaphorical language, and he talks about this person lived in a town of nobodies, and he wanted to be somebody, and how he had to get through the anybody's. And the metaphorical way that he talks about the journey is so powerful. It's
mm,
one of those books for me that I read a piece of every year. And it's also, how Oprah wanted or was giving out copies of The Color Purple. This is a book that I would give out copies of because he does such a good job of simplifying some of the most critical and challenging points in our lives and making it digestible and understandable. And he gives you good context to be able to process through it.
oh, that sounds like this book that I've read and listened to a million times. It's called Hind's Feet in High Places. And it's pretty much an allegory, and all of the characters have different names based off the different parts of life we're in. So like the main character, her name is Much Afraid. And then, she has a cousin called fretful, and it is. And then she has these two partners that the shepherd assigns to her. One is called Suffering, and one is called oh my goodness, I can't remember. But by the end of the story, as she goes through her journey, her name changes and Suffering's names change to Joy. And then, and
Yes.
it's just like this whole, it's so look it up if you can. Hind's feet in high places.
What's you said Heinz?
Hind's feet in high places.
Okay.
And so the other, the one, I'm gonna give one more. This book really, really spoke to me. It's called More Than Enough by Elaine Welteroth, Welteroth. And its subtitle pretty much says claiming this space for who you are, no matter what they say. That it just,
Mm.
that alone, just, it's a really good book to help you realize that you're enough. I read a lot of books about being enough.
Yes, it's something that we can be constantly reminded of,
Mm-hmm.
that you are more than enough. And also, I just think it's so important to be reminded that, if you feel so strongly and passionately, and you know in your gut and in your heart that you are called to do something, I don't care if there are a billion people doing it, then you need to move forward and just take the next best step. And don't look to your left or to your right. Stay focused. And when you get confused, look up to God.
Yeah.
Don't look around and compare yourself. Look up, because then you are going to get the affirmation that you need from God, and you don't have to worry about that validation.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah,
Because if it's still on your heart, more than likely there's something you are going to be doing different than everybody else that's already done it. There's something different that's going to be done on your part that are
that's
going
right.
to attract people to you.
That's right. I agree with that. And speaking of attracting people to you, Stephanie, can you let our audience know where they can connect with you and learn more about you and listen to the podcast?
Sure. So you can find me on Facebook. Yes, I still have Facebook. As Stephanie Cooper. There are a lot of Stephanie Coopers I know, but I'm on there, I promise. On Instagram, it's Broken Into Beautiful. So it's BROKEN, the number two, and beautiful. Um, my email address is stephanie.d.cooper@gmail.com. I don't use Twitter. I don't use TikTok. And then you can find me on Clubhouse at Stephanie Cooper also.
Yes, and I'll make sure to link to the podcast,
Oh
Instagram,
yeah.
and
And
your Clubhouse.
the podcast is on all the platforms: Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google. I think it's on iHeart. I think, but yeah, that's where you can find the podcast. And if you go on my either my Facebook or my Instagram, I have links on. I think it's my Facebook page. I have the links to every almost all the platforms.
Okay, perfect. So, yes, I will make sure that everyone is able to get in contact with you. And if you are struggling with this live that you can't do something, or that you can't connect because someone else is already doing it, I encourage you to allow myself or Stephanie to be your test. You can happily hop into one of our DMs. We would love to hear from you, love to hear how we
Yep.
can support you and challenge you on this journey to bust down this lie and get you into doing what God would have you do. Stephanie, I want to thank you so much for being here.
Thank
And
you.
if you have any last words or parting words you want to leave the audience with, you have the floor.
Oh man, I always have a quote. So I have one right here. As a matter of fact, I was going to use it on my episode, and I still might. But it says, "Not all storms come to disrupt your life. Some come to clear your path."
I love
So
that.
you might have some stuff that's in the way of you moving on that path that you need to go, and it's blocking you, so you don't know which way to go. So a storm comes and it clears some people out, it clears some jobs out, it clears a whole bunch of stuff, and now you have this new path that you might be afraid to take, but it's a new path that was created. So take it.
That's right. That's a good mic drop moment. Thank you again for being here. And I'm sure I will see you out in these internet streets.
You sure will, girl.
Cheers to collaboration over competition and really doing the work to initiate those relationships that are going to change not only the trajectory of your life, but the lives of others. I really pray that you are blessed by this conversation and that you are encouraged if you have been questioning whether you should move forward with an introduction or reaching out to someone or hopping in Sis's DMs. Listen, go for it. Speaking of DMs, I would love to hear from you about your thoughts on this episode or this series we've been in for several weeks now, The Lies We Tell Ourselves. You can surely hop up in my DMs on Instagram or Facebook at the Tiffany Huff. Or, of course, you can leave a review. When you do, you create the opportunity for other beacons to find the podcast and be blessed by what is being shared. So I look forward to connecting with you. And of course, I will leave you with this. God is not going to play you, but if you have still been allowing the lie of competition over collaboration to hold you back, I promise you are playing yourself. Be blessed.